Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the absolute backbone of any thriving university living environment, the student-staff ecosystem in residence life. You already know managing a residence hall is definitely not a plug-and-play operation. It takes a highly structured, interconnected web of student leaders to keep the whole thing running smoothly. So we're going to break down the 8 distinct roles that make up this ecosystem, look at their specific functions, and see exactly how they all lock together to build a truly successful community.
But before we get into the weeds with contracts and duty hours, let's anchor ourselves right here. Every single role we're covering today is built completely around one core vision. Whether a student is, plunging a toilet, tutoring a struggling freshman, or managing a 3 a.m. crisis, their ultimate job is to be a leader in student success and provide a premier campus living experience. That is the shared heartbeat of the entire department.
To get there, here's a quick roadmap for our explainer. We'll start with shared goals and duties, move into time and compensation differences, look at our frontline community builders, shift over to specialized focus roles, and finally, do a deep dive into the complex assistant exception. Okay, let's dive in.
Section 1. Shared goals and duties, the real foundation of residence life.
So before we look at what makes these 8 roles different, we have to talk about the baseline. What are the universal expectations? Well, every single student staff member, no matter their title, is bound by these core contract requirements. They form the absolute bedrock of your team's operations. That means, yes, everybody clears their schedule for those Monday 8 p.m. staff meetings. Every student has to be enrolled in a minimum of 12 credit hours, or 9 if they're a grad student. They all submit at least one of the month, or OTM, recognition per semester. They absolutely must adhere strictly to federal FERPA privacy guidelines, so extreme care with personal info. And of course, they've all got to stay in good student conduct standing.
Moving right along to Section 2, time and compensation differences and how we actually structure the roster.
Now, what's really interesting about looking at the numbers across these roles is how beautifully it condenses massive amounts of contract details into a super clear hierarchy. You can really see where the roles diverge based on what the department needs and the academic rigor involved. Take the GPA requirements, for example. The Maintenance and Custodial Assistant, or MCA, requires a 2.25 minimum GPA, which makes total sense for a highly practical hands-on role. But contrast that with the peer coach, who needs a strict 3.0 to handle intense academic tutoring. You also see this clear split in how we pay them. Our more specialized hourly roles versus the heavier stipend plus meal plan package that goes to peer coaches, resident assistants, and senior RAs.
There is also a really sharp divide in time commitments across the board. Complex assistants and programming assistants are highly targeted, strictly capped at 10 hours a week. And that contrasts sharply with the broader, heavier demands of the 20-hour group, which includes everyone from your desk hosts to your frontline RAs. Managing a 10-hour worker is just a completely different ballgame than managing a 20-hour worker. Knowing those boundaries, absolutely key to avoiding staff burnout.
All right, Section 3, frontline community builders. We're talking RAs, SRAs, and hosts.
These folks are the most visible roles on campus, right? They're the faces your residents see every single day, focused on direct community presence and immediate policy enforcement. They are your 24/7 crisis responders. From managing the late-night on-call rotation to dealing with the literal logistical headaches of opening and closing the halls, the resident assistant and senior resident assistant carry a massive operational lift. They're doing safety and cleaning checks, but they're also proactive community builders, required to log 10 intentional conversations with residents every single month. And keep in mind, the SRA takes all of this a step further, requiring that higher 2.75 GPA and at least one prior semester of RA experience.
And to guarantee that community presence and safety, RAs, SRAs, and peer coaches are bound by a strict nightly return curfew. They literally must be back in their assigned complexes by 2 a.m. every single night. If they want an extension or a weekend away, they need supervisor approval 3 days in advance, and they're capped at 2 weekends away per month. The message here is crystal clear. Physical presence really, really matters.
Meanwhile, the host serves a very different frontline function. Working up to 20 hours a week, they're the face of the central housing office during normal business hours. They're handling clerical work, answering phones, leading prospective student tours, and responding to daytime lockouts on the main campus. Imagine a resident locking themselves out between classes. The host is the one saving the day and getting them back inside. So they're frontline for sure, but entirely administrative, which is completely distinct from the late-night on-call duties of an RA.
Let's shift gears to Section 4. Specialized focus roles. This includes MCAs, MAs, PAs, and PCs.
While your RAs and hosts are giving you that broad coverage, this next group supports the community through really specific targeted skill sets. Take the programming assistant, or PA. Their entire 10-hour week revolves around BEAR plans. Now, a BEAR plan stands for Building Engagement Activity Resource. The PA writes these plans to align perfectly with the residential curriculum sequencing plan. They secure the approvals, they handle the Cub Connect portal tracking, and they execute the actual events. They're basically the specialized event planners of the residence hall.
Then we have our marketing and maintenance staff. The marketing assistant lives entirely in the digital and visual realm, posting daily to social media, designing flyers, making those classic door decks, and creating welcome videos. Conversely, the maintenance and custodial assistant is focused purely on the physical environment. They hold 10 specific on-call hours a week just for things like minor plumbing, painting, room prep, and cleaning up spills. So one role builds the community's brand, while the other physically maintains the community's walls.
Now, perhaps the most intensely specialized role in this whole ecosystem is the peer coach. Their entire mission is academic self-efficacy. Because they're working directly with a caseload of students who are on academic alert or probation, their standards are incredibly high. I mean, picture managing a resident in true academic crisis. It takes so much dedicated energy. Because of that, they absolutely must maintain a 3.0 GPA, handle tutoring, and, this is unique, they are strictly prohibited from working any secondary jobs so they can keep 100% of their focus on their peers' academic success.
And to show you just how rigorous this peer coach role is, get a load of this number. A peer coach must log 20 intentional contacts with residents every single month. That is literally double the standard requirement of a resident assistant. It just highlights how proactive they have to be in seeking out students who desperately need academic interventions.
Finally, Section 5, the Complex Assistant Exception. Let's look at their unique placement and duties.
I really want to put a spotlight on this role because it's just structurally fascinating. It's the perfect exception to the rule. On paper, they might sound kind of similar to an RA, but they are absolutely not. So how does the complex assistant fundamentally differ from a resident assistant? The crucial difference is this. The complex assistant has absolutely no on-call duty rotation. Because they are placed specifically in university-leased properties, rather than your traditional massive dorms, their workload is entirely different. They are strictly capped at 10 hours per week, and half of that is eaten up just by holding 5 required office hours. But don't get me wrong, they are still a vital point of contact. They're still doing walkthroughs, reporting maintenance concerns, assisting with administrative paperwork, enforcing policy, and logging their 10 intentional conversations. But they manage their community without holding the heavy burden of that 24/7 on-call pager. They represent a highly targeted administrative community presence in very specialized housing environments. Which brings us to the end of our explainer and leaves us with this final thought. From the 20-hour crisis response of the SRA, to the 10-hour specialized event planning of the PA, to the distinct placement of the complex assistant, you have an incredibly diverse toolkit at your disposal. So how will you leverage these unique role structures to maximize your community's success? Understanding these distinct boundaries isn't just about HR compliance, right? It's the absolute key to empowering your staff and building a truly premier campus living experience.